Well, first of all, I'm so glad that you said that it's in memory of Rabbi Lord Sachs, because I had thought of the same thing. And I think he had a certain cosmopolitan quality in common with Yosef. Yosef, who mentioned Elohim to everyone he met in the Egyptian world and still was a successful Egyptian, was something like Rabbi Sachs's ability to give the message to his own and to others. And his memory should be for a blessing.
Yes.
It's really, certainly his life was for a blessing. It's really so nice to be back with the Stanton Street Chevra. Makes the loneliness of COVID a little less lonely. And I was really excited to do this again because I so enjoyed sharing Shoftim with you. And it also meant a lot to me that Shoftim was dedicated to the memory of Jeff Katz's mother, Aleh Shalom. We want everyone to be with us, but it's also meaningful to have worthy people to dedicate our learning to. And but there are a lot of you who've never been to the Stanton Street Shul, so I'd like to tell you 2 words about it before we go to Yosef. I think you'd find it a really interesting place to visit. I certainly did. It's a historic, small, beautiful tenement shul on the Lower East Side. And I really enjoyed davening there and seeing their beautiful gallery, because the Stanton Street Shul has many gifted artists among its members. And thank you to the Shul Board and to Rabbi Stoller for letting me do this one more time. So the Yosef story, of course, is a rich and interesting one all its own, but this isn't a class about the Yosef story. It's about the reverberations of the Yosef story. And that is because the Yosef story is a template for many other narratives in the Tanakh. And there's a reason for that. The Yosef story is at a kind of a nexus within Sefer Breshit, which we'll talk about later. And that's part of why it's become a template. And also it really so vividly demonstrates the Torah's message about being a son, being a brother, what it means to be a leader, what it means to be a tzaddik, what it means to be a diaspora Jew. And I love the Yosef story because I think it tricks us with all its details. And Yosef has more airtime than anyone else in Sefer Breshit. It almost seems cozy. It doesn't seem, it's not a stark drama, like let's say the Akedah. It's a different kind of a play, a different kind of a demonstration. But I think that for me, it's not just because he lived in the diaspora. There just is something very modern about Yosef. And I like him. And I think of him as a modern Orthodox Jew. Before we get going, just a word about how it's going to be organized. I think that Yosef's narrative is very, very familiar to everyone here. So I'm not going to make any effort to go through the story in an orderly way. If you want to brush up, it's the last 4 parshas of Sefer Breshit, beginning with Vayeshev, or chapters 37 to 50, the end of Genesis. But you don't need to be a Yosef scholar to be here. You can bring a Chumash if you want. It's not needed. when there are key psukim that I'm talking about, I'll put them up on the screen. But this approach isn't scholarly. I would say it's personal. So we all know that Yosef is called Baal HaChalomot. Chalomot is easy, it's dreams. Baal can be someone who's a master. And it can also be just someone who has something. So a Baal Habayit is the master of the house, but he's also the owner of the house. A Baalat Habayit is the mistress of the house and the lady of the house. And a Baal Simcha has a Simcha going on. For Yosef, let's just call him Baal HaChalomot, and in English, the dreamer with a capital D. And Yosef is a Baal HaChalomot in two senses. He's a dreamer because he has extraordinary dreams, but he's also an interpreter of dreams. He interprets the dreams of Sar HaMashkim and Sar HaOfim, the king's butler and baker who are with him in jail on death row. And of course, he interprets Pharaoh's dreams and saves Egypt from famine. But what about interpreting his own two vivid, remarkable dreams? There's no statement in the Torah that says that he does. But I just can't imagine that he didn't. How could Yosef, Baal HaChalomot, not have tried to figure out what his own dreams were? And so for tonight, our topic is Yosef's possible interpretation of his own dreams. In other words, how I understand how Yosef understood his dreams. Of course, it's not definitive, it's not authoritative. Some little bits of it are agreed to by some Meforshim, but it's just how I've thought about it over years of teaching it, mostly to fourth graders who've taught me a lot. So let's start with the dreams, and I'm gonna share them with you on the screen as he told them to his brothers. So as we know from Paro telling his dream, sometimes the dreamer doesn't tell it exactly as an outside narrator might describe the dream. But this is how Yosef described his dreams, and this is what we have, and this has to be what he interpreted. So the first dream I did in green, and the second in blue, to make it visible that the first dream is a dream of the field, and the second dream is the dream of the sky. So the first dream has 3 vehines, because that's dream-telling language. So, vehine anachnu me'almim alumim betoch hasadeh, and behold, we are binding sheaves in the field. Vehine kama alumati v'gam nitzava, and behold, my sheep stood up strong, rose up and stood firmly, whereas sheaves usually lie horizontally on the ground. V'hine tisubena alumotechem, and behold, your sheaves came around, vatishtachavena alumati, and they bow down to my sheaf. So we know the brothers are not going to like this dream, and we'll talk about that later, but our first question really has to be, is this a dream taking place in a setting which is part of Yosef and the brothers' experience? Sar HaMashkim, in his dream, sees himself dealing with wine, and we know that must have been part of his experience. And the baker is delivering bread, and that surely was part of his experience. Paro dreams of animals and grain for food, which I'm sure he's not the one who grew them, but they're surely things he saw. But up until now in the Torah, the family of Abraham have been shepherds. We haven't heard that they're farmers. And this is an agricultural dream. So does this mean that now they are in some sort of a combined culture, a semi-nomadic culture where they live in one place, move their flocks around, but also farm, which we see later in the Tanakh? Is this hinting at one other nexus in our lives? Or is this not related to his life and pure fantasy because this is the right image for the message that it carries, which is, of course, about grain. In the second dream, notice that the introductory words are, I don't know how to make this thing at the top go away. The introductory words are Vayachalom od, chalom acher. He dreamt again another dream. And that's an important point because the two Sarim in jail dreamt what seemed like very similar dreams, but they were different dreams. Paro dreamt what seemed like pretty different dreams, and Yosef explains they're one dream. So we know from the get-go, Vayachalom od, when he dreamt again, Chalom acher, it's a different dream. In my opinion, that means it has a different solution, a different interpretation. The two dreams are not two symbolic ways of giving the same message, the way Paro's two dreams were. Vayisaper oto lechav, and he told the dream to his brothers, Vayomer, Hine chalamti chalom od. Behold, I dreamt another dream. It's as if part of the power of this dream is that it follows the preceding dream. V'hine hashemesh v'hayareach v'chadasar kochavim mishtachavim li. And behold, the sun and the moon and 11 stars are bowing down to me. About as unambiguous as you can get that number 11, because of course he had 11 brothers. So now I'm going to stop sharing, and I want to talk a bit about the impact that these dreams had. We know that after the second dream, the brothers essentially rebel against Yaakov. They take their father's sheep, all of them, and they go to Shechem, the place. I tell my class when they hear the word Shechem, this is the music in their heads, dum, da, dum, dum, dum. Only bad things happen to Yaakov's family in Shechem, but also Shechem is the setting of the rebellion of Shimon and Levi against Yaakov. And that's where they're going. And it says specifically with their father's sheep. It's almost as if they not quite stole the sheep, but they're coming close to it. It's hard to imagine that in a very wealthy family, every time they move the sheep to new pasture, every one of the brothers, well, 10 of the 12 would go to move the sheep. They are distancing themselves from Yaakov and Yosef, and it follows the dreams. So, that's an important part of our understanding what these dreams meant to them. So the first thing to know is that this is a family where dreams mean something. These are the sons of Yaakov, one of the great dreamers of all time, right? Of course, everyone knows the dream of the ladder. And in a moment, I'm going to talk about a couple of other less magnificent dreams that he also had. But it's part of their family lore that one can get an important dream from God, a prophetic dream. I would say. And it's also part of their perspective to interpret these dreams. Of course, not every dream is given to interpretation. In the Egyptian model, and there's a lot that's Egyptian about this story, a dream that comes twice needs interpretation. So there are two, just as there are two for the two Sarim in jail, and Paro has two. And a dream that comes at a significant time is needed for interpretation. So for the two Sarim, it's 3 days before the Pharaoh's birthday, which was the day when he pardoned and punished. For Pharaoh himself, it's his own birthday, which is a national holiday. But are these dreams at a significant time? Well, we don't have a date or a number of days, but it does seem to be a significant time in the life of the family. One of the struggles in this family is, to whom is the mantle passed? And the mantle has just literally been passed to Yosef in the Ketonet Passim, right? Yaakov's choosing Yosef, which is how the brothers see the Ketonet, seems similar to them, to Avram choosing Yitzchak over Yishmael, and Yitzchak choosing Yaakov over Esav. Now, in those two previous choosings, the choice is endorsed by Hashem, right? Hashem tells Avram, let Sarah, do what Sarah says and send Yishmael away. Hashem allows Yitzchak to be tricked and put the bracha where it belongs, let's say. And Hashem also repeats the bracha himself directly to Yaakov in the dream of the ladder. And so the brother's concern is, this dream is the confirmation that father should choose Yosef over the rest of us. That the favored son, the tattletale, the son of Rachel, who gets everything anyway, now this dream comes from on high and he's the chosen one. So that's one way to look at the dream. Another way to look at the dream is he's a self-centered, spoiled brat who imagines his older brother kowtowing to him. And the brothers go through the process of seeing it both ways. At the beginning, when they hear the first dream, they are simply furious, but they see the dream as coming from inside of him. They say, Hamaloch timloch aleinu, will you be king over us? Imashol timshol banu, will you rule us? But they say it in a way that it's something he wants. Hamaloch timloch aleinu is really, could be translated, are you fantasizing about being our king? Are you fantasizing about ruling over us? But the second dream is a little different, because the second dream has the father in it. Now, the way the Torah tells it, he tells the dream of the sun and the moon and the stars to the brothers, and then he tells it to the father and the brothers. And it seems that the brothers is unnecessary repetition the second time. And the way the Midrash solves it, which really rings true to me, is that when he tells this one to the brothers, they say, this is going to turn Yaakov against him. If he dares tell it to father, this in the world in which they lived, that a son conceived of his father bowing to him was just beyond the pale. And when he tells it to his father scolds him Vayigar bo aviv, and he says, Havo navo ani vimcha v'achecha lishtachavot lecha arza. You really think I and your mother and your brothers are going to come bow down to you to the ground? But it also says, Va'aviv shamar et hadavar. His father kept it in mind. Yaakov was at least considering the possibility that this is one of those dreams, like his dream of the ladder. It's not at all clear that Yaakov knew of the first dream. And the brothers, you would think, would get some comfort from the fact that their father scolded him. And in fact, a lot of the commentators say that's why he scolded him. If you think of the case, which shouldn't be, where a parent has a favorite and the two little girls get off the bus and Susie, who's the favorite, drops her backpack in front of the door and walks away. And then comes Carla, who does the same. And the mother says, Carla, pick up that backpack. You leave it in front of the door every time. And Susie said, and she says, Susie dropped hers too. And the mother says, Susie, you pick yours up also. Did Carla get satisfaction? Not at all. There's no child doesn't know the difference between genuine anger and anger as a strategy to seem fair. He had to scold Yosef because in that society it was a completely unacceptable dream. But the brothers sensed that their father had respect for the dream, I think. And the reason I think it is you see a real evolution in the brothers. Before the first dream, this is their relationship with Yosef. V'lo yachlu dabro l'shalom. They could not speak to him peaceably. After the first dream is bracketed with their hatred of him. And at the end of the first dream, Vayosifu od snow oto. They hated him even more. But after the second dream, and the way it's told to Yaakov and received by Yaakov, Vayikanu voechav. And I don't have a good English word for Vayikanu. It's jealous in flashing lights. In English, I would say jealous is a weaker word than hatred. But in Hebrew, kina is stronger than sina. It really means jealousy which you're prepared to act upon. And that really is what happened. They went from being furious at their brother about the first dream to a kind of fury mixed with fear about the second dream, because the response makes them think this will be the final sign for Father that Yosef is the chosen one. This happens so often in families that the entire struggle is about something that isn't. Yaakov is not in the process of choosing a single successor. As I'll show you later, his mandate is specifically not to choose. But we're always fighting the old battles, not the current battles. And so they think that that's the struggle between the sons of Leah and the sons of Rachel, between Leah's Bechor and Rachel's Bechor. And so that in that light, they see the dream. And also they're not quite sure how to take the dream. They could see the first dream as coming from Yosef. But with the second dream, they begin to think maybe it comes from outside Yosef. Maybe it is a prophecy. And this mixture of anger and fear, this belief that their future and the future of their children and children's children is in jeopardy, turns their sin'ah to kina, and the word that keeps coming into my head is actionable. Now they feel their hatred is actionable. They can't just stew about it anymore. They have to do something. And what they do is they quit the family. And this isn't the first time. Yehuda's with the family now, but he quit the family once, which leads to the whole Yehuda and Tamar story. And he came back. There's no way to know who suggested the trip to Shem. Something in me tells me it should be Shimon or Levi, but we don't know. But they all go. There's a kind of unity that comes from threat. And only Rachel's sons are left behind, Yosef and Binyamin. And Yaakov definitely recognizes their departure for what it is. And now you feel they're coming to a very dangerous boiling point. And when remarkably, and this is for a different night, Yaakov decides to send Yosef to them. And Yosef willingly agrees. And Yosef doesn't find them in Shem. And instead of going home and saying, I did my best, knew they weren't there, he keeps looking and looking with his theme song, Et achai anochi mevakesh, I seek my brothers. And when the brothers see him from afar, according to many of the commentators, they recognize him because he, in his extreme immaturity, he's wearing that ketonet pasim, like waving a red flag in front of a bull. Then they are stirred to action. And the action they take and the words in which they express it show how afraid they are of the dreams themselves. And I'm going to share those words with you. 1 second. Okay. So the brothers have moved from Shem to nearby Dotan. They see Yosef coming, and they say one to another, Hine bal hachalomot halazeba. The first time the phrase is used. Here comes that dreamer. V'ata, and now. L'chu v'nargehu. Let's kill him. V'nashlichehu b'achad haborot. And throw his body into one of the pits. V'amarnu chaya ra'a achalatu. And we're going to say a wild animal ate him. This is premeditation to the nth degree. Let's do the crime. This is how we'll do it, and this is how we'll cover it up. And they turn to each other and say, V'nireh ma yiyu chalomotav. And then let's see what becomes of his dreams. And they don't say he's got it coming, really. I mean, I guess you could look at it that way, but to me, their hatred for him has morphed into a kind of a fear of the dreams. And the only way to stop the dreams being realized is to kill Yosef. And sorry, I just want to find my place.
Hi, Lisa.
Can you forward me? I don't know why I can't find the Zoom link.
Oh, I just clicked right on where it said Zoom.
Sorry, Naomi, can you please mute?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. It's all right. It's all right. So that's the brothers. Now let's turn back to Yaakov, the dreamer father of a dreamer son. Yaakov's dreams, all three of the dreams reported in the Torah, the significant dreams, come at a time of departure. The dream of the ladder, right? Sulam mutzav atzav malachim olim v'yordim bo. is when he's running away from Esav, and he's sent by his parents to go to his uncle Lavan's house. The next dream is after 20 years in Lavan's house, a dream comes in which an angel tells him it's time to go back to, I'm sorry, not back to Canaan. There might have, it's time to move back to Luz, the place of the original ladder dream. And the third dream is when he's on the way to go down to Egypt. But of course, it's the dream of the ladder that's the monumental dream. And that dream has two elements. It has picture and text. There's an image, and there are many opinions about what the image means. And then there are Hashem's own words, which don't seem to be exactly directly related to the image. Yosef's in a different position. He only has image. So he has a tougher time understanding his dream. And in a moment, we're going to come to his aha moment, I think, when he suddenly gets what he interprets his own dreams. But before that, I think it's important to know that three words that resonate so much with the reader weren't known to Yosef. For Yosef, his father scolded him, his brothers left, his father sent him to his brothers who tried to kill him and did get rid of him. The reader knows Ve'aviv shamar et hadavar, and his father kept that dream in mind. His father is waiting for the realization of the dream. The father has respect and faith in the dream, but he has not expressed it to Yosef. So, it's really, you have to see Yosef in such a lonely position. He's the favorite, which is already lonely. You have the love of father and your brothers don't want you. And now father hands him over to brothers, is how it must have felt to him. So his aha moment after being a lowly slave, moving up to an important slave, getting in trouble with Eshet Potiphar, being thrown in jail, explaining Paro's dreams, convincing Paro to store grain for 7 years. And now we're 2 years into the famine, right? So Yosef is now 39 years old. He was 17 when he left home. He's had a lot of time to think about these dreams. And now comes his aha moment. And I'm going to show you the exact words. Okay. Now, I tried to keep the color scheme of that I used for the two dreams before. So our green dream, our dream of the sheaves. I'm in Parak Memdet. Vayavo b'nei Yisrael lishbo b'toch habayim. And at the time of the famine, Yosef's brothers came to buy grain among the other foreigners who came to buy grain. And according to the Midrash, Yosef set it up that foreigners need to get some sort of a license from him to buy grain, hoping that he might see his brothers. Ki haya rav be'eretz Canaan, because the famine had reached Canaan. Yosef hu hashalit al haaretz. And Yosef was the ruler of the land, not the king, the food distribution ruler. Hu hamashbil l'chol ham haaretz. And he was selling grain to the people of the area. Vayavo achei Yosef, his brothers came, vayishtachavulo, and they bowed down to him, apayim arza, faces to the ground. And Yosef saw this image, and he realized that he was seeing the realization of his first dream. In his first dream, he was a sheaf of wheat and they were sheaves of wheat. Now to them, he's just the mashbir, the grain seller. And they are just grain buyers. They're sheaves of wheat and they are bowing before him. And the red is what he's thinking. Vayar Yosef et Echav vayakirem. He saw his brothers and he recognized them. Much easier for one to recognize many, and he's anticipating the possibility that they might come. Vayitnaker alehem, and he made himself like a stranger to them. He was already pretty strange. He was called Safnat Paneach, his Egyptian name. He's dressed like an Egyptian. He speaks like an Egyptian. But he makes an effort not to be identified, possibly changing his voice. Vayidaber itam kashot, he spoke harshly with them. Vayomer me'ayin batem, where are you from? To which they reply, Me'eretz Canaan lishvol ochel, we come from Canaan to buy food. And now, having now heard their voices, Yosef is certain of their identity and of the realization of the first dream. Vayaker Yosef et Echav. Yosef recognized his brothers. In the first Vayaker, which I underlined, only by sight, now also by voice. Vehem lo hikiruhu, and they didn't recognize him. Vayizkor Yosef, and Yosef remembered, and now I tried to write in the color pattern of each dream, because he has seen this dream, the first dream, come true, but now he remembers the pair of them. Vayizkor Yosef et chalomotav asher chalam lahem. And Yosef remembers his dreams he dreamt about them. After what he has been through, when he sees them, I think the reader expects him to remember what they've done to him. And instead, he remembers the dreams that he dreamt about them. Of course, it's been a long time, and that does help. But let's see, 9 years prior, he had told Sar Hamashkim, the butler, about how he was wronged, right? He didn't name the brothers, but he says, Gam po lo asiti me'oma ki samu oti babo. Here too in Egypt, I did nothing wrong, and they threw me in a pit. So he hasn't forgotten the pit. But that is not what he's remembering now. And to me, and I guess you could say the source of tonight's theory is the last word here, lahem. The dreams he dreamt about them. And I would say to some extent for them. The way I see it, the brothers certainly thought, and maybe even Yosef himself, that these were Yosef-centric dreams. But at his aha moment, he understands what great leaders have to. This is not about me. This is about them. And to me, this is like his most endearing, if I'm right. So this is what I think happened. And I heard some of it when I was in 4th grade. My wonderful teacher in Leominster, Mass, Rabbi Lowenthal, Alav Shalom. And when a lot of years later, I started to teach in Maimonides in Boston. Rabbi Lowenthal was retired, and I knew in the interim he'd written a book about Yosef, and he coached me before I started my job. I feel I'm passing it on with my mentees. And over the years, I came to disagree with part of his view, I agree with others. I certainly learned to love Yosef from him, but this crux of the matter, I've always felt he had it. And that is this. It will take me a few minutes to explain. I hope you'll be patient, but and he is following other Mefarshim, but the putting it all together was essentially his. What he said is that he didn't emphasize the word lahem, but he said when he looked at the second dream, he made the decision that his dreams were hortative. They carried an instruction. They weren't a vision of the future. He made a whole case how, except for once with Abraham, that's not the kind of prophecies or dreams God gives. He doesn't let us just peek at the future for no good reason. And he was able to reflect on the steps that led to the first dream coming true. And he realized how God had been engineering the events of his life and his brother's lives. And now he decides that it's his responsibility to make the second dream come true. That God gave him the first dream and the image of the realization of the first dream. And God gave him the second dream, and his part is the realization of the second dream. So he considered what he had to do to realize it. Well, in the second dream, he is himself, and the sun and the moon and the stars bow to him. So from the first dream to the second dream, he will need to reveal his identity. He can't remain unknown to his brothers. The other element is there are 11 stars. And right now, as the story shows us later, there are 10 brothers bowing down before him to buy grain. So the missing brother is Binyamin, the one whom Yaakov can't bear to send away, having lost, he believes, Yosef by sending Yosef away. He's got to get Binyamin before him and bowing. He's got to get Yaakov before him and bowing. That's the sun. The moon is a mystery, and there are many comments. It could be his stepmother, Bilhah. I believe it was his mother, that a boy who's lost his mother, in his dreams, his mother has to be there, as I see it. And the hardest thing is the brothers can't be sheaves of wheat. They can't be the earthbound zhlub, planning fratricides, selling their brother, or at least somehow getting rid of him guys. They have to be stars. Hashem showed Avram the dream, a vision, and said that his descendants would be kechochvei hashamayim. Are these brothers kochvei hashamayim? Not at all. But Yosef has this redefining understanding all of a sudden of the whole situation. And he realizes that his mission is to help the brothers be stars. And I'm going to talk about that more, but this is the end of Rabbi Lowenthal's part, and he effectuates it in an extremely risky way. He decides that to be a star, you have to do full teshuvah on what you've done wrong. And what is teshuvah shlema according to Rambam? You're back in the same situation, You have the same possibility to get away with it. You have the same degree of temptation to commit the crime, and you don't do it. Now, what he would want is to put himself in jeopardy and see now if they treat him right. But it won't work. He's the great Safna Panef. No one's going to dare do anything to him. And so he engineers the brothers' tshuva, risking Binyamin as the bait. He puts Binyamin in his own place. He has to keep his identity secret, causing, he knows, continued suffering to Yaakov and to himself. He cries at the effort to hold back his identity. And he engineers that this foreigner who's crazy, who is totally irrational, as the proof of innocence wants Binyamin, as if having a brother proves that you're not a spy, and if bringing a guy you know it's your brother, but he wants the one thing they can't do, and they feel God is punishing them. They feel the extreme injustice of it, and they're terrified. And he's going to get them alone on the path with Binyamin when they're relieved and they think, great, we got Binyamin, it all went well. And he's going to put Binyamin in jeopardy with that cup in the sack. And he's going to give the brothers every incentive not to kill Binyamin like happened to him, but at least to abandon him. I mean, the guy's a thief. And they have to feed their families. It would be irresponsible to go back to Egypt with Binyamin. And yet there's this powerful silence. Not one brother says, I'll take the food to the family. They have to be with their brother Binyamin. They have to be with the son of Rachel. They have to be with the favorite whom Yaakov favors and hurts them so much when he says in their presence, Shnayim Yaldali Ishti, my wife, as if it's his only wife, gave me two sons, Yosef, who's gone, and Binyamin you want to take. They've been hurt again and again, and yet they're instinctively noble. It's not on principle. They're different people now. They have to be with their brother when he's in trouble. And of course, they return to Egypt. And then is the magnificent scene where Yosef discovers that they're brighter stars than he could have ever envisioned. When Yehuda not only stands up for Binyamin, wants to take the punishment in his place. Because Yehuda says, I accept that my father loves him more than me. Which is, it's an impossible thing to do. It seems so homely, the brothers, the this, the that, the goblet, that it's hard to realize how magnificent the story really is. And to me, the extra layer of magnificence, and really what entitles Yosef to be called Yosef Hatzadik, as he is, isn't that he resisted Eshet Potiphar. It was a hard thing to do, but a tzaddik is not someone who plays by the rules. A tzaddik is above and beyond. And I think his tzidkut is that he helped his father succeed in the mission he was failing at. His father's mission was to have 12 shvatim, 12 tribes descended from himself. And he was alienating left and right. There are all sorts of reasons to forgive Yaakov for that, especially the way he grew up. And having 4 wives is also no picnic. But I want to, but the way, I just want to show you in 2 seconds the mission, just to prove my case, and then I'm going to wrap up. Let's see. So here are 3 cases with the exact words repeating. There are others that give the same basic message, where Yaakov is told, first by Yitzchak in Vayetze, V'hayita lekahal amim. You are to be the father of a community of nations or a group of tribes. And in Perek Lamed Hey, Hashem himself says to him, Goy ukehal goyim yiyemimeka. From you will come a single nation and a community of nations. In other words, you'll have Am Yisrael, this is where he's been named Yisrael, and you'll have the Shvatim. And he feels the importance of it because he repeats to Yosef in Vayechi, in Pasuk Daled, Vayomer Elai hineni mafrecha v'yirviticha v'netaticha likahal amim. He says, God himself told me that I will be the father of a community of amim. And Yosef understands that that's his father's mission, and that the notion that he who got the Ketonet Pasim would be selected is wrong. Maybe even Yaakov was intending to select him. And he realized that his mission is to make them stars so that they can be leaders of the different segments of the Jewish community. And to do that, he must withdraw, which is asking a lot of a born leader. But that's the greatest thing leaders can do. It's not just that he has to withdraw from becoming he could have been the single leader. All he had to do was tell his father what his brothers did. And there's no question they would be out. But his keeping the secret, it is really the ultimate sacrifice, because he sacrifices his relationship with Yaakov. He never allows himself to get truly close to Yaakov. And if you read the few words they share, they're so awkward because he cannot tell what happens, because then his father might think his brothers were unworthy. And he wants his father to see them as worthy. And he believes now that they're worthy. He wants them to be worthy in spite of what they did to him. And so he lives this lonely life where the brothers are afraid of him because he knows the secret and has the power both to tell father and to punish on his own. And so he loses his brothers and his father out of love for his brothers. To me, it's an amazing self-sacrifice. And it always makes me think of Lincoln. In my mind, maybe his face looked a bit like Lincoln's, although he was very handsome, and Lincoln certainly wasn't. But that's what it takes to be a real tzaddik and a real leader, which is to sacrifice without any publicity of any sort. Of course, the Torah tells the story, but in his generation, it's completely unknown. And so from tonight we go from Yosef Bal HaChalomot to Yosef HaTzadik. And that's really what it means to be a great dreamer. So I hope I gave you a taste of how much I love Yosef, and we'll meet again next week. If anyone wants to comment or ask, I'd love it. You can unmute yourselves if Margie lets you.
Yeah, I think everybody can unmute.
Good.
Yeah. Excellent. I'm going to have good dreams tonight.
We'll interpret them next Monday.
Thank you. Rita, if Rita's still here, she'll interpret them for me. She's my dream interpreter.
Rita has that talent.
Well, with me, she does.
Andrea just wrote everyone sweet dreams. Okay, thank you for coming. See you all next week.
Okay.
Is it the
Thank
same
you.
link next week, Margie, or will you send a new one?
I believe it's the same link, but I'm pretty sure it's the same link. I'll find out. If it's different, I'll let you know.
Okay, so
Okay,
I'm gonna
thank
assume
you.
if it's different, I'll send it to the people that I
Yeah,
forward.
otherwise just tune into the same station.
Okay, good night, everyone.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thank you, thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Together.
Thank you, Rachel.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank
It was
you.
wonderful.